Buffalo Bills sending away Stephon Diggs to Houston after a season filled with questions and what appeared at times as there was perhaps friction with star quarterback Josh Allen. Buffalo's going to carry a dead money charge of roughly $31 million next season as part of this deal. Let's start with the Bills general manager, Brandon Beane, addressing where the team stands now.
Are we better today? Probably not. It's a work in progress, and I would just hope that people know I'm as competitive as hell, and I ain't giving in.
Did you talk to Josh prior to the move? Have you talked to him since the move?
I have not talked to him since the move. I think it's important for me to make sure if I think something could happen to make sure he's not blindsided. I did alert him that, there had been some inquiries and it wasn't 100% off the table.
Okay, so perhaps Josh Allen had a hint it was coming, and perhaps we all could have if we've been following Stephon Diggs on social media. He changed his background picture a week ago to him waving goodbye, and then just 2 days ago he responded to a user saying Josh Allen doesn't benefit from elite wide receivers with the simple question, are you sure? Well, now I guess we're going to find out. The man who always has all the answers for us is Shefty, who gets up with us early this morning. All right, Shefty, take it from the top. How did this happen?
Well, big picture, Greeny, obviously there was always the chance that the two sides were going in separate directions. All you had to do was watch Stephon Diggs on the football field and the way that he interacted with his teammates and in that organization. There were times when he was upset on the field. You could see there were times when he and Josh Allen were not on the same page. And then this offseason, you could begin to trace the breadcrumbs. And they started really a few weeks ago when the Houston Texans went to the Minnesota Vikings to make a trade to get out of the first round. Now, many people assumed that the Vikings initiated that deal to get extra capital in the first round for a quarterback when it was the Texans who initiated that trade to get out of the first round. Clearly, there was a reason they wanted out of the first round, and they wanted extra second-round capital to go make a move like the one they did yesterday for Stephon Diggs. This was a relationship in Buffalo that had run its course. The Bills recognized that if and when they traded Stephon Diggs, that they were going to have to absorb an extra $3 million salary cap charge. They're now about $4 million under the cap. They get back an extra $10 million when Tre'Davious White comes off their books after June 1. So they were in position to be able to make this move, and it's been a reset at the wide receiver position. They add Mac Hollins. They add Curtis Samuel. And those right now are the top targets. And for the people saying, well, Buffalo should go out now and trade for a wide receiver, sign a high-priced wide receiver, they can't afford to do it. They're going to have to find economical, efficient ways to restock the wide receiver room, most notably through the draft. And with all the talent in the first round of this draft, the Bills have to be considered somebody that's going to take a long, hard look at wide receiver in round one.
Yeah, they pick at number 28, and there will definitely be star caliber receivers that are available then. Before I bring everyone else in, let's just illustrate what Shefty just said. Cindy, can we put up a full screen graphic number 1 this morning? We have, put your feet up, folks. We're not going anywhere for a while here. We got a lot to dive into here. And so this is what the wide receiver room looks like. Here's the point that Shefty was just making. They've got Curtis Samuel. They have Khalil Shakir, who was coming along last year, actually played big for them in that playoff game against Kansas City. But you have only 3 guys who've ever caught a pass last year. No pass catcher, including the tight ends on the current Bills roster, has ever caught 100 passes or had 1,000 receiving yards in a season. So is there a hole in that room at this moment? There most certainly is. So Damian Woody, it will lead some people to say the Bills are taking a step back. The Bills, we talked about the window closing and all that kind of stuff, and Josh Allen. Have they taken a huge step back trading away Stephon Diggs?
Well, listen, that's a lot of production that's walking out the door and walking to the Houston Texans. There's no question about that. And in 4 years, you're talking about a guy, Stephon Diggs, I believe, who led the National Football League in reception. Mm-hmm. That's the type of production that we're talking about. But, Greeny, I go back to the playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals a couple years ago, the divisional round where they lost that game at home. Yep. Clearly, you saw the dynamic between Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. I think that in that scenario, in that situation, there was something going on in that game. And I don't think the relationship ever repaired or ever got back on track at that point. To the point now where clearly the team felt like we're going to swallow $31 million in dead cap money and give away a 2025 second-round pick in order to get this guy out of the building. So the question now is, okay, Josh, you're the guy. You're our franchise guy. We need you to elevate the other players on this roster right now.
Let's actually once again illustrate. Put that graphic back up, Cindy, if you can there, please. That was number 2, and that is exactly how productive this duo has been. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, how productive have they been? More than any other combination in the entire NFL. If we can see it again briefly, here it comes. Again, they are first in yards, first in completions, tied for first with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes in touchdowns. So there have been no more productive combinations. And look, I think a lot of people have credited Stephon Diggs with being a huge component in the extraordinary development of Josh Allen. And I think that is true. All these things can be true at the same time.
You sure about that?
Am I not sure about that?
Are you sure about that? That was Stephon's
Meaning
question.
he said that. Right. Well, the point is, there's no question. I believe there was no question. I don't even think this is an opinion. I think it's a statement of fact that the acquisition of Stephon Diggs when they made it
completely changed Josh's trajectory and
trajectory
how
of
we
his
talk
career.
about Josh Allen and what we expect of Josh Allen. The minute that Stephon Diggs got to Buffalo, it's like, okay, he's got a clear number 1. Now what can this guy do? And based on those stats that Cindy just put up, clearly they've been cooking, but they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl and won it together, and that's part of the problem. Green, I'll be honest, I hated this trade for Buffalo when it happened because make no mistake, on April 4th, Buffalo was far worse than it was when the week started.
on April 3rd, yeah.
But this is one of those moves where sometimes addition through subtraction.
Bart Scott.
Yeah, well, production breeds tolerance. And now he's been a squeaky wheel. But when you talk about Buffalo when they turned their season around, it's because they went through James Cook. You got to understand that Joe Brady may decide to go in a different route. They have 2 outstanding tight ends. That's their advantage right now. And I think sometimes you talk about, them being one of the most productive duels in football. That's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing was that, they were productive. The bad thing is that Josh forced the ball to him, and when the defense didn't dictate the ball should go there, he had to force it anyway because you have a diva over there that you have to try and make happy. And, it became a distraction to the team. I think this is an indication that, hey, you're on the wrong side of 30, and before your production was elite, you were able to separate. But now the league is catching up to him, and he's starting to slow down. Now, he still has maybe two elite years, I believe, in being a number 1. But I think they saw that, the game was changing, he was changing, and it's time to go in a different direction. Right, you can't have this, right? And it's time for Josh Allen to step up and be a leader and time for him to elevate. He got him over the hump, and he helped develop him as a young quarterback. But now Josh is in the middle of his career. He has to put more on his shoulders.
That video you're seeing right there is the game that D. Wood was referring to earlier, that playoff loss against Cincinnati in Buffalo, a very disappointing performance all the way around by the Bills. And you saw a demonstrative Diggs on the sideline there, seeming to be frustrated with Allen. And to your point, there has always been a feeling that everything was not quite right between the two of them.
No matter how they tried to downplay it.
And now, the proof is in the pudding. Out he goes. Let's bring in our receiver. What do you think of this, Harry Douglas?
Well, the very first thing I thought of is that for Brandon Beam, Sean McDermott, for those guys to make this move, you don't make it without a plan. And it's not just a plan A. You got to have a plan A, B, and C to make sure that you're able to get a wide receiver for Josh Allen moving forward. Secondly, I would say this. You cannot continuously go into each season over and over again with the quarterback and your number 1 wide receiver not on the same page, or your number 1 wide receiver frustrated and feeling some type of way about whatever he may be feeling some type of way about. I would tell you 9 times out of 10, and most of the times 10 times out of 10, your franchise quarterback is going to win that ordeal. The organization is going to have him at the forefront, and they're going to do whatever they need to do with that wide receiver. So I just thought for the last 2 years, man, it's been too much noise between Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. And we're talking about a duo that's been phenomenal and productive. But think about how much better they could be if you didn't have that noise between the two going on. And I would say this, though, for Buffalo, and to your point, Bart, we got to look at the numbers, right? When Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator, and I have him right here. When Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator and he took over for the last 9 games, Buffalo averaged 36.7 carries per game and 156 yards per game. Under Ken Dorsey, that was 25 carries per game and 116 yards rushing per game. So the offense changed as well. And I think moving forward, you're going to see this football team in a lot of 12 personnel with the ability of Dalton Kincaid being able to be the single wide receiver / tight end, being able to flex out in the slot as well. So I just think the offense as well is moving towards something different, more so than it was to start off last year.
Shefty.
Yeah, and how many times have we seen signs all on the way? You saw the highlights of that playoff game. You saw the tweets from Stephon Diggs' brother, the Dallas Cowboys cornerback, Trayvon Diggs, alluding to the fact that his brother was unhappy. How about 1 year ago when Stephon Diggs doesn't show up to mandatory minicamp and Sean McDermott says he's very concerned? And then, to Harry and Bart's point, you see the Bills phase Stephon Diggs out of the offense a little bit as the season went on, transforming the offense. The two sides were going their own separate ways. And now you look at a team last year that many regarded as one of the top teams in the AFC. Stephon Diggs is in Houston. Gabe Davis is in Jacksonville. The top two targets from last year are scattered elsewhere in the AFC South, and now Buffalo's offense has to be transformed. And again, they're limited in what they can do because of the cap charge that they're eating. So help has to come in the draft. It has to come from Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. It has to come from James Cook. It has